Hey guys, welcome back to the business of art. Today I want to talk to you about pricing your art. I know this is a difficult subject to figure out, especially when you're just starting out. So I'm going to give you some factors to take into account, and then also where you can what you can use as a starting point, I guess. Now here's the thing, is it's going to really depend on what kind of art you do. There are so many kinds of art, it's not even funny. So here are the factors that I take into account. Number one, what materials are you using? Are you using a $1 canvas versus a $20 canvas of the same size? There are differences. Are you using craft paint versus the highest quality artist paint? There's a huge difference there in prices. You can have, the same size painting in the same style, but be very different price differences on how much it costs to make. Okay, the second factor is how big is the piece. You're obviously going to charge more for a piece that is, 20 by 20 inches versus a piece that is 8 by 10 inches. So how large is your piece? All right, next is how long did it take you to do? Did the piece take you 5 minutes, 3 hours, 2 months? Obviously different price factors there. You can't charge $20 for a painting that took you months to do. You'd be making, cents per hour, if even that. So definitely factor in how long that took you to do. Part of that time factor is how long have you been at your craft and how long have you been selling art? That is a huge factor. If you're just starting out, you're going to charge less than someone who's been doing it for 20 years. If you've been doing it for 20 years, you might be charging less than someone who's been doing it for 40 years. Now, if someone's been doing something for a long time but has never sold anything, they're kind of on the lower end of the just starting out spectrum. So you're still in that group of just starting out, unfortunately. But you could definitely charge higher than someone who's just starting out in the craft. So factor that in, especially when you're looking around at other artists and how much they're charging for their pieces. Factor in that they could be doing this for a very long time and they could have hundreds of paintings sold or thousands of paintings sold. This is going to be a little bit different. All right, next I factor in where I live. Now this is me personally. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I live in Los Angeles. It's really expensive. And anyone that lives in, say, San Francisco or New York City, you're going to have to charge more for your pieces because the area you live in is so expensive versus somewhere in maybe more the middle of the United States that it's, living costs are about 1/10 of the price, literally. So that's a factor I take into account in my pieces. And lastly is how much do you like the piece? Now that's my own personal factor as well. If there's a piece that I really, 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 really love, I will charge more for it than a piece that I liked, but I'm not as thrilled about, or, I'm not just absolutely in love with it. So those are the things that I take into consideration. I have seen online some charts, like price charts of per square inch charge this much. I really, really strongly disagree with those because they don't take any of those factors into account. The only factor those take into account is the size of your piece. So if you are doing a kind of art and you stick to one style, you use the same materials every time and things like that, then you could develop a price chart for yourself. If you do that. And I know, say, like a lot of mural artists, that's how they charge. They charge per the square inch or foot. Same thing with portrait artists. They charge by size and usually by how many people are in the portrait. But that's because they do the same thing every time with the same materials, and the only thing that they're changing is the size. So if you're in that situation, you can absolutely develop a price chart for yourself. And that would take all those things into account, and then you could increase it as you go. As you get better, as you get more well-known, as you get more business. Another factor here is that I increase my prices usually twice a year because I sell a lot of paintings. So twice a year I'll go and I'll increase everything by 10. And that is a supply and demand thing. So if you get to starting to sell a lot of paintings, you can absolutely increase your prices, increase your prices, increase your prices. I would definitely say never undercharge yourself. You don't want to put your paintings at $5 or $8 or something. People will not take you seriously, and they'll consider that it's a psychological thing, I guess. How much something is priced at can be how much something is worth in someone's mind. We're not going to go too much into that, but just don't underprice yourself. Now, where can you get a starting point? Because that's all fine and dandy, but how do you even start to get an idea of what to sell your pieces for? My best suggestion is to look at other artists around you. Look on Etsy, look at art fairs, but as much as possible, take into account those factors. Look at what materials they're using. If they're on Etsy, you can see that they've got 500 art sales or they've got 100 art sales. They're going to be charging a little more for their pieces, most likely, than you would. So I would just look around. That's the best way to get a starting point in your area of art. Look around you and see what other artists are charging and use that as a starting point. Don't use that as law. Just use it as a starting point and then go up from there and, start to take all those things into account. I'm just going to give you a specific example. Let's say you're doing an 8x10 acrylic pour, okay? So let's say the canvas cost $2. The paint cost, it's how much paint did you use on that canvas. So the paint cost $2, and the other materials used in there, another $2. So maybe it costs you $6 to make. So immediately you can't charge less than $6. It also took you 30 minutes to get the supplies together and to actually make the painting. So let's say you're paying yourself $20 per hour. That's another $10 right there. So that automatically puts your painting up to $16. Let's say you've been doing this for, 10 years, 5 years, and you've got a lot of practice. You can automatically tack on another $10 for that. So you may be able to charge $26 for that painting just starting out. That's just an example of how you can kind of start to work these things. Now, let's say you're doing an oil painting. The materials are going to be a lot more expensive. So do not ever charge $26 for an 8x10 oil painting. You're going to want to charge a lot more. Same thing with resin, other art forms that cost more. So I really hope this was helpful, guys. I hope it gives you a little bit of a springboard and an idea of how to start, but just get started. You can always adjust your prices later. Just get started. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll see you all next time.